Welcome everybody. This is to another edition of Atheists Having Cocktails with Christians. I'm with hopefully a new friend, Lasadio Prada.
Ladislao.
Slough
Yeah. Prado.
Prada. Okay.
Prado, yeah.
So, you were the bass player and vocalist for the band Martyr, correct?
hmm
Okay.
And still am.
Still am. Okay.
Yeah.
Martyr was one of those bands that I didn't know a ton of. I had a friend that had one of your early demo tapes, and precursor to for me it always was a very cool kind of Exodus, kind of just like Bay Area thrash kind of sound to me,
hmm
So always, like I said, haven't heard your stuff in a lot of years, but just the last few days, been back on the links that you sent me and was listening to some of the songs, like, oh, I remember that song. I remember that song. So introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about what Martyr was, how it started, kind of the origins and the genesis of that.
Yeah. So Martyr, there it is again. I am currently still the bassist and screamer, whatever you want to call it, vocalist for the band. And Martyr actually started. We were all young adolescents when we were in high school when the band started. And so I think, let's see, Mark Johnson, the lead guitar, he would have been a sophomore, and Davey and I would have been going into our junior year. So it's quite a few years ago because that was 1985.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remember when you and I started talking about this, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to go through the history and find out what happened here. I remember that Motley Crue came out with the album Theater of Pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that was right at the beginning of the summer of 85.
Okay.
And so, well, I don't know how much you know about that album.
Oh, yeah, that's a great album.
They went full on glam.
Oh, okay?
Yeah. And I wasn't having that. And so I was looking for something else. In fact, I think I remember opening the cassette tape. I was at my good friend Ray's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I even gave it to him. I said, dude, this is it. And then after that, everybody went glam because that was what was being marketed at the time. So you're talking mid 80s and that.
Oh, yeah.
So I needed something else. And so, because that was definitely not the metal or the hard rock I was growing up with, Kiss and I know Cheap Trick's not very heavy, but I was into them. Also into punk rock, but that'll probably come a little bit later. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But so everybody went glam, and so I was looking for something else that because I definitely wasn't having that, and so I found Metallica's Ride the Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, it was an epiphany.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, here we go. This is exactly what I've needed. And so right from there, I started looking for everything else. And then I soon stumbled upon, Stormtroopers of Death, their first album, Speak English or Die. And then, of course, then Anthrax spreading the disease.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a period of time before you had the really big albums by Slayer and Anthrax and Testament and all them come out. And so, but already I was smitten. And so I was talking to Mark Johnson at another friend's house that I was in a band with. And he said, hey, what are you listening to these days? I go, well, I'm listening to, SOD and Metallica. They're out of this world.
Yeah.
And so he was sharing with me, oh yeah, I got SOD. So he was into it too. And so we weren't in the band. Him and the drummer were in another band called Grave Raid at the time. And so, and I don't know if they were quite doing the thrash thing yet, but towards the end of 85, I remember that's when we first got together at one of our local churches. I actually auditioned for them. And that's a funny thing about Martyr, because everybody associates me as being one of the founding members, and I'm actually not. So it's kind of one of those Pink Floyd things with David Gilmour. Nobody associates Pink Floyd really with Roger Waters. And when they think Pink Floyd, they go right to David Gilmour.
So
Well,
you're
same
speaking
thing.
wise of me because they're one of my least favorite bands of all time. I hate Pink Floyd with a passion. Them, the
Okay.
Doors, and a few others, man,
Yeah.
I just like don't care about them at all. But I get
Uh,
the efforts, you know what I mean? You know.
yeah. Well, yeah. My listening spectrum is as wide as the universe. So
Oh, same here. Just
I
there's
listen to
certain
everything.
bands through growing up, that just they pushed on. Like I didn't become a Rush fan until probably 10 years ago when I finally got to see them live. I have a buddy from Detroit who's a Rush fanatic, and he was always, Rush, Rush, Rush. And I was like, yeah, man, they're talented. And I didn't get it till I saw them live. I was like, okay, I get it now. You know what I mean? There's a lot of bands in my youth, loving, punk rock. Like, that was more. Well, I grew up in Ventura, California, and
Yeah.
where was Martyr based out of?
Well, the first iteration was obviously here in Porterville because we were in high school when it started. But
Where is that?
after, Porterville is well, it's about 3.5 hours from Ventura. Like here it is. Here it is. It's an hour south of Fresno, an hour north of Bakersfield,
Okay.
up against the foothills.
Okay.
So yeah, it's obscured.
Okay. Because I always heard you guys were from like San Francisco. That's what I had always heard. So
No, when I graduated high school, I moved down to Harbor City because I was going to Sanctuary, the church.
Okay.
And so the band disbanded when I moved from Porterville down to LA, the LA area in there, and then that's when I found players for the second iteration of Martyr. But
Okay.
I'll quickly back up real quick, and then I'll get us up to speed. So we formed at the end of '85. That's what I remember. I don't think it was '86. It was already in '86. We had already been playing concerts, and early in '86 in the spring, we had recorded our first demo. And I think I sent you that Bandcamp thing, and it's on there.
Yeah.
Boy, is it rough! Yeah. It's a 4-song demo, and you could definitely, the thrash influences were there. I mean, we were full on committed. And yeah, we were copying the artists we loved at the time, and that because we didn't know anybody. We're in high school, sophomores and juniors in high school doing this and that.
Yeah.
And we just loved it. And so, but that first album, especially like Death is Dead, that one that's on Bandcamp right now, that's definitely a lot of crossover stuff. So it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't it wasn't like the death metal thrash that we would become later on with the second iteration of that. And so but still we loved what we were putting together, and the concerts were a lot of fun.
Nice.
That so what happened is,
was your focus being a Christian band from the get-go, even first second iteration of the band? Were you guys already Christians at the time, or did you find Christ later and then trying to do Christian music after that point? But just the origin, was it always supposed to be we want to be a Christian band?
Yeah. So the music will speak for itself there because it's pretty in your face. Get Christ in you. That's actually one of the songs on there. So yeah, we were definitely Christian band, and that's how we were being marketed. I mean, like we had our that demo in Christian stores and stuff, and there were a few secular stores of that, but that was definitely how we were being marketed to that end. And so after I graduated and Davey graduated, went off to college. Davey's the drummer, who is the drummer today, because we're three-piece, but we'll probably get to that here in a little bit. But anyway, so he went off to college. I told my parents I did attend college, but I quit college to move to LA, and I was supposed to go to El Camino Community College in Torrance. That's why I told my parents, hey, I'm going to go down there. I am going to go to school and that. And I'll tell you what, Simon, the only time I stepped foot on El Camino College, Community College, was to walk through it one night. That was it. That's the only time I've ever stepped foot on the campus. So my interests were getting down there and getting the band going and just hanging out. It was a great time to be down there, especially with that Sanctuary family.
Yeah.
And we'll probably talk about that in a little bit. So yeah, the band.
Real quick, because people in LA that aren't from LA back then knew that, like, especially Hollywood from 82 to about 88, 89, man, was mostly hair metal. You know what I mean? It was really hard. If you were a metal band, you did a lot like Orange County with the punk bands, or down in Venice or whatnot. Like, it was hard to be more of the extreme metal coming and playing Hollywood, like Azaris or the Roxy or the Whiskey or the Troubadour, because it was, the hair scene was what was it at the time.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. I remember going out there and hanging out in Hollywood and stuff. And Martyr did play there probably a handful of times, but the venue was set up for thrash. You know, they weren't having no hair bands, you know, on those evenings and that. But yeah, you're right. It was all Venice, Long Beach, South Bay, stuff like that. It's where San Pedro at the Waters Club and stuff like that. That's where the thrash was happening. And that, you know, the big bands would come in. Country Club too, out more your way in Ventura. But those are special nights for thrash. You know, you weren't going to see any of the hair band there. So yeah, after high school, I moved down there. Mark left to go to the Crucified after I had moved down there, and I don't know if you know about that. But
Mark moving down to LA,
yeah. So he was in the Crucified for I don't know how, I can't remember how long it was, and then they had their thing.
Oh, Mark Johnson, the bass player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he
was their second bass player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their second bass player. Yeah. So, I think it was their second bass player in that. And so, so the band split up. I took it down to Redondo Beach and then started there. And then it took me, it took a while. I think I was down in South Bay for probably, maybe not quite a year before I met Marcus Colon.
Okay.
And then it was just he and I for a while, and then we found a couple other guys, and then that started the second iteration of Martyr. And that's where I don't know if you have access to the Imminent Warfare album, but that was definitely the direction we started going. The death metal thrash route. And so, that band was probably, I think that band was probably together another year before. I think John, the drummer at the time, he was getting married or something. He had other interests, so he left. And Mike Van Ash, I don't really recall, but there was just some type of, just, you know how bands are. People leave and they come and go. It's one of those things. So we went a different direction, Marcus and I, but definitely Marcus and I we were committed together. We were committed to one another, like Paul McCartney and John Lennon, like that. I mean, we didn't write every song together.
Yeah.
But we had the same vision for what we wanted to do with the band. And then years later, even after talking to Marcus all these years, he was very serious. And you could tell by listening to Betrayal that he ended up doing exactly what he wanted to do, and good for him, because that's what he wanted. Because I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think I was as serious about doing it as he was. He was fully committed to that, and that manifested with Betrayal in that. So, we did demos, that are out there. If you can find them, they're going on eBay for a pretty penny. I don't even have them, but we did a couple. Let's see, we did two demos. We did Imminent Warfare. We did Frantic, Marcus and I, and Imminent Warfare. Frantic. We didn't even have a band. It was just Marcus and I. And if you go in there, the funny thing about the Frantic demo is it was recorded in Tourniquet's studio. So cool. Tourniquet wasn't even formed yet. Guy and Gary were trying to get Marcus and I to join Tourniquet. So it would have been Terry, Guy, Gary, myself, and Marcus as Tourniquet. But again, Marcus and I were so committed to one another, seeing Martyr through, that we said, "No, guys, thank you for letting us record in your studio."
Yeah, definitely.
We're gonna, you guys, you guys go do your thing. We're gonna stay Martyr, and then also too with Frantic, if you go look at the demo, Jimmy Brown is all over that thing. In fact, a lot of the solos and guitar tracks are Jimmy on there, and then of course he's doing background with us and stuff like that. And then there was a time there, probably before Frantic, where Jimmy actually wanted us to join Deliverance. So here we go again, where Martyr, it wouldn't have happened. I'm telling you right now, we weren't going to join them because Marcus and I, again, were like,
you had your vision, you wanted this,
stay the course. And so we absolutely did. And so where things went awry is that Marcus definitely knew what he wanted. I thought I knew what I wanted as far as the band goes in that, but the guys were just at a different place than I was.
Definitely.
And I just said, yeah, this is just not. I'm not really getting along with I'm not really getting along with you. I think we just split up. So we went our separate ways. I came to Porterville, brought Martyr home for a third iteration. We did a demo, and we never signed. There was a company that did pick us up to distribute the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They printed that, but it wasn't one of those signed deals to that. Then the band quickly folded because we went on a pretty big tour. Well, I can't say a big tour, but a 2-week tour.
Yeah.
Went all the way up into British Columbia. And then after that, we got home and said, hey, guys, there's no money in this. In fact, if we weren't selling merchandise, we would have been stuck there.
Oh, yeah.
So we got home and we're like, oh, wow, that is a wake-up call. I don't think we're going to do this anymore. And so we all disbanded, went our own ways.
Well, what do you think was the catalyst, especially with everybody in Southern California from basically, 80, 87 up until 93, Vengeance getting signed, Tourniquet, Deliverance, shit, who else was down there at the time? The Crucified, obviously they were in Fresno. All the bigger, most, what do you think the catalyst was with you guys not getting signed, especially if you're part of Sanctuary? They were, Bob was jumping on every Christian band being, wanting them to be part of Sanctuary. You know what I mean? I mean, they even had stuff from Sanctuary and Believers from Chicago. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah.
Every you got Sacred Warrior, like, Sanctuary. So I mean, for me as a kid growing up and hitting the Christian bookstores was for me, I grew up, in a very Christian house, and my first musical taste, or not musical taste, but things I was listening to was like Petra and White Cross and Stryper, obviously Stryper's, the granddaddy of all the Christianity gateway drug. You know what I mean? Everybody listens, and then as I got older and was hanging out with, because I came from, Southern California, Ventura, where from my hometown is Ill Repute and Aggression and Dr. No and Stalag 13 and all these great punk bands that I had been seeing around town way before I got into metal. But when I got into metal, it was, when I first heard Slayer, when I first heard Rain and Blood, I was like, what is this? That took me. And then even after that, like, I know everybody always boasts on Metallica, and I'm just like, yeah, man, they had some great albums. But for me, when I really got into metal was probably like around 89, 90, especially with like Vengeance and then Mortification and Tourniquet. And Betrayal was great too. I mean, I got to see them a couple times. I saw them once with the Crucified and Nicene Creed and Wish for Eden and Mortal at the Roxy. It was the first time I saw Betrayal. Then I saw them another time with the Crucified it was either at the Whiskey or the Country Club in Reseda. And but for me, I was going more towards, like, I found Napalm Death and Bolt Thrower and Carcass. And I wanted more extreme stuff. And, up until then, I mean, the most extreme really was, really that sound was, Vengeance and Mortification. Everybody else, great bands. Tourniquet was, what they did, and everybody was, that, and there's even like listening to Betrayal. I was listening to the albums a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, man, there's a lot of really progressive metal in these albums too. As heavy as it is, there's a lot of really good progressive, kind of, technical metal going on in these. For me, it was all about, extreme, Cannibal Corpse, like that kind of stuff. So that's just kind of like, and that's about the same time where, I really was questioning Christianity and walking away from it, or not, maybe not walking away, but at least distancing myself to where I was looking for, answers and other reasons of why I don't feel this anymore. And, and I'm going more of this direction, so.
Yeah.
So, but again, I'm sorry, I kind of had a long wind, but what do you think the catalyst was that didn't get Martyr going like everybody else? Because it seemed everybody was getting signed by Intense at that time.
Yeah. We had, it was okay. So, and I don't know how this happened. I know a little bit about the story just in talking to Marcus in recent years about it, but we didn't go with, I think it's who, oh my goodness, I can't remember who Betrayal signed with. Well, anyway, we
Vision,
received it.
Wonder Vision,
Oh, Wonderland, is it Wonderland?
Wonderland, I think, something like that.
Wonderland. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think it was them who sent us a contract. Martyr, they sent Martyr a contract,
Okay.
and they wanted to do like 3 albums, and they wanted to do an album every year. But when we were reading the contract, they're like, hey, we're going to front this much money for the recording and the production of the album. You've got to pay this back before you get, do anything. And so we actually paid, and this I do remember, we paid $660 of our own money. And, we're minimum wage guys in LA. Yeah. And, Mark has got a family at this point. All right, $660 to pay a lawyer to read this contract. So here's where we had a big problem is we got the contract back. We were like, well, we're not going to sign this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it was like three albums. They were going to own us for 3 albums, 3 years in a row. And I forget what the royalties were. It just was not in favor. They did not craft they didn't craft the contract in our favor at all. And it was a dismal contract. So we spent $660 just to say no. And I was like, so after that, like, well, we'll wait. That was we were going to wait because we knew something would come. And I think there was somebody else who was already looking at us at the time, because Marcus was the one kind of leading all of that, Mm-hmm. And so he might know a little bit better, but I do know. We paid $660 for a contract we didn't sign. That was
that's $660 well spent for you not to be a slave to bullshit company that doesn't care about you and would have worked you to the bone and didn't give a shit about you anyway. And unfortunately, that's one of the main points I keep hearing from Roger and Jimmy and Greg and all these guys, man. Just because it says Christian music industry before it, take away the Christian. No, it's the music industry. You're a product. Mm-hmm. It's not a ministry. It's not about getting kids to Christ or changing hearts. It's about making money. And I understand. Yeah. I understand the business aspect of it, but that's just the sad thing is that when as a kid you're buying a Christian tape and hopefully you're thinking, man, this money's going to the artists. They're doing well so that they can keep doing what they're doing in the name of the Lord. But then when you find out that, you guys are making no money, your tours suck, there's no tours. Mm-hmm. Yep. You're barely making your bills. And at that point in time, it's like, where's the love of Christ from this company that's, wanting to have you as this, missionary, music, situation when they don't give a shit about you. They're just taking money.
Yeah. I wish there was a way you could talk to Marcus about that, because he knows a lot more about their deal and that. But Marcus, he did, and I feel so bad for him that he really got the raw end of the deal. But he was about the gospel, proselytizing, and getting the word out there first. But he was very serious about the music, certainly a lot more serious I was. And it's too bad that he went into a contract that he kind of even knew going into the contract, because they didn't hire a lawyer at that point. And even to this day, he is still suffering from that whole deal. But I would, maybe Chris, when you talk to Chris, maybe he could let you in a little more detail, because I was already out of it. I've talked a lot. Marcus and I have had so many conversations in recent years about that whole deal. But he did. He basically, he had sold certain rights, to his music, which he'd never done. Because when you do that, you were selling your art and that. And I get a little perturbed when I see that my art is out there on YouTube and people are exploiting it. And they didn't even ask permissions in that. And so I kind of understand it, but his is more economical too. It's like you sign with this company, you expect to get supported somehow, is compensated somehow. He didn't get any of that. And that's unfortunate. And,
well, hopefully with the re-releases, and hopefully with, Rocks Records re-releasing, those 2 records, hopefully there's, I just know firsthand dealing I've talked to Bill a couple times. I've talked to Adele Meisenheimer, who owns MDL Records, who has all the rights to like Deliverance and Tourniquet and Vengeance and whatnot. And they're I'm not saying anything against Bill Rocks. I don't know him. I haven't talked to him and whatnot, but hopefully they're taking care of their artists, because they're making some serious money off of $40, $50, $60 records at this point in time that are, I get.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, I mean, if you go right now, look up a Trail and try and find their two records, The Passing and Renaissance by Death, man, you can find them on eBay for $95. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
When I bought them, they were $25 to $30 a piece, which is fine. I'm a vinyl hound. I like vinyl. I like collecting.
Oh, awesome.
You know, I mean, shit. I mean, I'm working with Roger Martinez right now on the 5th Vengeance record. I'm playing bass for him right now.
Oh,
and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
dude, that is killer. Right on.
Yeah, we're working on it, man. I have, you know, we're still in the process of writing. So, but when the 35th anniversary came out, you know, I personally, you know, spent the $189 and bought the vinyl box set, and I had to email Bill and be like, hey, man, you know, everybody else from the band, which I think is still pretty shitty, that they didn't even include Roger. They didn't reach out to him to talk to him about any of his points of the music. They left him completely out of the 35th anniversary. There's a whole liner note of, you know, talking with, you know, Doug and Larry, and I have no beef with these guys. I just think it's shitty that happened. But, you know, I had to get a hold of Bill and be like, hey, man, you need to send Roger one of the collector sets. This, whether you had him on this or not, man, this is fucking music, you know?
Yep.
So Bill came through.
Good. Yeah, because that is his art.
Yeah.
You know.
With you, man. Like I would be extremely frustrated and pissed off people making money off of something that I worked, you know. And that's the thing. I was in bands for years, man. I made no money. You know what I mean? I was in a band from 1997 till about 10 years ago, consistently playing in a band. And
awesome.
We played with, you know, huge bands like Earth Crisis and Walls of Jericho and tons of, you know, Agnostic Front and all sorts of great bands. Dude, we never got paid. If it would have been for merch, we would have never made any money.
Right. Yep.
It's just how the business is, you know, unless you're that multi-million-dollar fucking act that they are able to snag.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. There's a dichotomy between the bands who are struggling, who are out on the road and just making it with their merchandise, because the album sale, I mean, now the album sales have plummeted now that there's the internet, because back when there was no internet. So if you wanted something, you went and bought it, you know.
Even you found that one record store that could special order stuff, and you're like, you wait 6 weeks for it to come in, you know, and you're like, you know, I want to get it, but you know, and that's just a sad thing of, you know, that it is the music industry. It's you know, and that's where, you know, I'm on the Christian metal forum, and you know, it frustrates me when all these people are putting all these bands on this godlike level about their music and their talent. And I get it, man. I respect the music and talent, but at the end of the day, God damn, man, like these guys, they're just people and they're not being treated well. Unless you're like Stryper, you know what I mean? Stryper, I think, is probably one of the only, you know, Christian metal bands, you know, that, you know, really, really, really made it, you know, that probably made some serious being MTV and tours and stuff like that. But
you know, but at that point, you know, I hope, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some interviews with Oz Fox and stuff, and he was in a bad way, you know, for a while there when Stryper had broken up. I think he was working in a warehouse or something like that.
Wow.
And he was at wit's end in that. And so, and then you know, these bands, you've really got to, really be big time. And nowadays, you really get. I think that with the cost of everything today, even the fuel getting around, touring acts, unless you're on a big bill with multi stages,
massive tour support.
It's really, I don't know that it's going to happen. Too much anymore. You do it just as a hobby or the love, for the love of it now, and that. So
let me ask you this: and when you kind of decided I'm gonna push the brake, I'm gonna pump the brakes on Martyr, and then Marcus went on to do Betrayal and whatnot. Like, where were you at that point in time? Like, what were you like? Were you done with music for a while, or just focusing on working, or what was your mindset right then? And at that point in time, did you ever kind of maybe, do a prayer or say something like, God, why did you put this calling on me and you're not fulfilling it when this is what I feel that I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah, great question, Simon. So I had a reality check probably in, oh boy, I wish I could remember. Well, I wasn't down in LA in 91. I had already moved back to Porterville at that time. So in 1990, I don't think it was, no, it would have been 1990 that I had this friend I was taken to, to Telestai Church in Torrance, and that with Hal Lindsey, and that and he had guest speakers coming in talking, about the, creationism versus evolution type of, forums and that. And so I took my friend and I go, hey, they're going to have a talk on the flood. And he's an atheist. His father actually was, I don't know if it was his dad was a engineer professor at El Camino College or Dominguez Hills. I can't remember. I think he was an engineering professor at Dominguez Hills or El Camino Community College. I don't remember which one. So I took him and he goes, all right. So he came back to me a couple of days later with an essay. And I'll never forget the day or the time I got it. And he brought me this essay. He goes, hey, my dad said you might want to check this out. Mm. And the heading is Creationism versus the Light Bulb.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, let's see where this is going to go, And because I thought at that time some things could be debunked about versus evolution. Mm-hmm. And the basic premise of this essay says that if the heavens and the earth are up to 10,000 years old, mm-hmm. then why are we seeing light from galaxies that are billions of light years away? And I go, well, there's a reason why they say the speed of light is a constant. And mm-hmm. And the last time I checked, it's a lot faster than a chicken chasing a June bug. So, well, I knew enough then about speed of light that like, wow. So my whole belief system just kind of imploded right there. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say that that was it. I was an instant atheist, but it's certainly agnostic area, mm-hmm. And so, so at that time I don't even know that I was searching at that point, to tell you the truth, mm-hmm. at that point. And so, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's why, it was time for betrayal to go their way and martyr to come home and do that and mm-hmm. end up the way they did. So that's what happened there. So I didn't really have the desire to carry on any ministry, to really do music beyond that point. Not in that capacity, because when I did come home, I discovered playing in country bands, especially here in the Valley, you can make a lot of money in a cover band. And I was like, wow, this is a great part-time gig. So that's what I was doing. So, my whole belief system was, like I said, it imploded, mm-hmm. like a dying star. So, so that's where I was at for a number of years, mm-hmm. not paying attention to, Christianity or anything like that. I just kind of was wondering, mm-hmm. just a wanderer here on the earth and that. And then, so, but I wouldn't say that it wasn't until I actually started going to college again, mm-hmm. Probably in 99, where I started, an inquiry, and that's where our great philosophers of the past, like Confucius, Socrates, were saying, they basically said that you have this mind, and the mind has to be put into action, mm-hmm. because you're obligated to do that if you have this enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it. Okay. And I would say that is when I began looking again and looking at the literature and that. And I began looking at science like, well, it can't be refuted. The speed of light is fixed.
Totally.
So,
But it's fixed in the sense of we made up that census of time. You know what I mean? Light is light.
yeah,
Light is going to do what it does. We figured out a way to, as a primate, to figure out. Okay, we're going to call this, a kilometer because this is this distance. We're going to call this a certain amount of time, a day, a year, because we learned this. You know what I mean? Light's going to be light. You can name it whatever the fuck you want, but it's going to be light, and it's going to do what light does because that's what nature intends it to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so I began to look at, and this is I've been telling people this, that look, you want me to go and speak on the miracles of Christ, Immaculate Conception, walking on water, all that. In this lifetime, I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay. I got enough problems trying to get through Genesis and Exodus to match creationism with what the Word of God says compared to what science says. Because, like I said, my belief system was obliterated by that one article. Stephen Gould, Gould, Creation Universe Libel. People should go out and read that. It is a fantastic essay.
No, I'm going to look it up. That looks interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. And so, but I think I needed that in my life because I think when we humans establish a belief system, whatever it is, okay, the first problem we encounter is we establish that belief system on our self-observation. Mm-hmm. And that is a big problem. And Sylvia Nassar wrote a brilliant book. And I'll tell you, this is where people get into problems with establishing a belief system on observation alone. Mm-hmm. And the number one person who unleashed the greatest scourge on earth is Karl Marx.
Oh, yeah.
And when you read,
yeah,
I thank God, and I want to put this out there. Sylvia Nassar, she wrote the book on economics. Oh my God, what's it called? I don't have the title. I have the book. I won't get it right now. Maybe I'll send it to you later. You can put it up however. But cool. Anyway, then Nassar, Nassar. Okay, in the book, she doesn't talk about what a debauched humanizer, lazy human being who was enabled by Engels. Joseph Engels, he didn't write the Communist Manifesto. That is Karl Marx. Okay?
Oh yeah,
that is all Karl Marx. Mm-hmm. Joseph Engels, his name is in there as like editor or whatever. He didn't do anything with that. Yeah. He enabled Marx. He funded Marx. Marx was a lazy, debauched womanizer who had a bastard son. So Nassar doesn't talk about that at all. She talks about when Karl Marx was in London writing the Communist Manifesto, mm-hmm. that he never visited any factories. He didn't talk to any of the workers. These are all things he was talking about. He didn't bother to learn English. And she goes on and on. I mean, she obliterated communism. Just that one. It's not even a whole chapter on that. And I was like, oh my God, I got to get the word out to the world. But there it is. The reason why I'm talking about, the reason why you do not ever place your whole belief system on observation is for the same reason that Karl Marx and communism is utterly obliterated, because she did the research he never did. And now I'm really busy now, but in the future I'm going to find out. I guess he's got a doctorate, but he's Dr. Marx. But right. I think it must be an honorary doctorate. You know how people get those, like Neil Young's got an honorary doctorate. Okay. So I think that's there. And so that's why I go back to what Confucius and Socrates said, that if you have the inquiring mind, you are obligated to follow that inquiry and put it into action, which means research. It's the same thing that scientists do with scientific method. They come up with a question. Okay. Well, that's what I did with my belief system, Simon, because I came from a point of being, okay, well, I was a believer, but a tentative believer, and then maybe an agnostic. But then I began to look at the book of Genesis and Exodus, and looking at, what would be miracles there, like the days of creation and that. And then And I read a lot of literature. Excuse me. Um, both secular and fundamentalist, because that's another thing too. The literature says that we're either a fundamentalist or a skeptic. So in a way, I was approaching the study from skepticism as a skeptic. Okay, and so at that point, you're very objective. So I began to look at the book of Genesis, and oh my God, if you look at the days of creation, the way the organisms appear on Earth is exactly how they appeared on Earth. Exactly. You have the seas opening up, land opening up, plant,
foliage and whatnot,
spora, spawna, flora first, okay, appearing on Earth, and then you follow the sequence through Genesis 1, and you'll see that, oh my goodness, the organisms appear on Earth the same exact way that science says they appear on Earth. Now, here's the thing. You got the creationists that believe that, well, the Earth's, 10,000 years old at most. The Bible says that. Well, does it really? Who are we as humans to say, who are we to put a timeline on God's creation? Who are we to say a day is actually one day?
Yeah.
Or is it?
That's
or is it?
Right. We come up with these constraints that we understand as a human brain that makes sense, that we can answer these questions. Especially when especially with a lot of creationists that believe that the world is only 7,000 years old, and humans have only been here 4,000 years. And within the last year, this archaeologist discovered in Turkey this huge underground civilization that they're dating back to 12,000 years old. And here's the thing: I'm not a scholar. You know what I mean? I'm not a PhD. I read what I can when I can. I have a family. I work. I have other things I do. I do my show. But to go and just say that, and that's, I think, a lot of my problem with Christianity is just the absolute. Faith is not enough for me to say, yes, I'm going to bend my knee to and live a certain way for something that I don't believe, one, exists, and two, even if it does exist, from what I've read throughout the Bible, especially in Exodus, when you come to verses 20 and 21 about slavery and the treatment of slaves and how to get slaves and how to keep slaves, what I mean, the misogynistic parables against the women, it's always the woman that's the fault, what I mean, it's never the men, and these are coming from Bronze Age beliefs that come from a region where, especially with Islam and whatnot, that I don't believe are very moral. I don't believe they take we live in a Western civilization where we're so much more free, and we're open thinking, where women should have the place, and freedoms and all this. Go over to the Middle East. You don't get those freedoms, especially as a woman. You can't vote. You can't be on the street without a chaperone. You know what I mean? You have to have your face covered, or you're going to be stoned to death. And these are Bronze Age practices that are still happening today.
And that's a problem with theocracies.
Yeah.
That is the boy. We're probably going to have 2 or 3 discussions, because don't get me started on the papacy, But anyway, so I believe that the Earth is truly 4.6 billion years old, and man is a late comer. I mean, a late comer. And then when you realize, when you see that, it's like, okay, well, I've done I realized that even though I found that truth for me, I still have so much more to go.
Totally.
And, and like Confucius said, I am now obligated to continue learning and studying to reinforce that belief. Okay. And so another thing too, we were talking about the Islamic faith. It's very interesting too. The Quran actually talks about a Big Bang. The Quran actually talks about a Big Bang. So you have two ancient texts, who by the way are worship. These people are worshiping the same God.
Exactly.
The Muslims are the children of the East, and that. So, so I believe that. Yeah, there was a Big Bang.
I agree.
Billion,
100%.
13 billion light years ago. Sorry, 13 light years.
Yeah, no,
13 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. Okay? Yeah. And our Earth is, only 4.6 billion years old. But I truly believe that. So, yeah. But I still have a lot of study to do too. Now, where I've arrived at also at my faith is that I'm not one of those, I'm a skeptic when it comes to everything, and I mean everything. I'd probably have a more peaceful life if I wasn't such a skeptic.
Definitely.
But there are miracles that have happened in this man's life that can only be explained by having some type of favor from God the Father, because things just do not happen like that. If you want to call them miracles or luck, it's either I'm the luckiest man on earth, and truly that, either I am truly the luckiest man on earth, or there's divine providence involved, and I believe it's the latter.
Okay.
By those two things alone.
I'm sure you've been in situations in your life where you're probably reaching out, trying to speak to God and through a prayer, and I always heard growing up in the church, your life with God created you, and your life is from the minute you're born till the minute you die. God knows what your life is going to do. He knows exactly where you're going to be, what's happening, So I've always felt that like prayer is an argument with God. It's not asking for something. If you're having a rough time, if that's where God wants you, instead of on your knees saying, God, please get me out of this. You know what I mean? It should be, well, thy will be done. Whatever happens, happens, because this is God's predetermined, what's the word I'm looking for? Journey through my life. You know what I mean? So do you think maybe prayer is kind of a thing where you're saying, God, I don't agree with your plan. I don't think it's good enough. I don't like it. So therefore I'm going to try and change your mind to change it in my favor.
Yeah. Excellent question. So the idea of worship, and this kind of goes with what you're asking. The idea of worship is lamenting, and part of that is like crying out to God, like, "Oh, woe is me, God." Okay. Actually, God accepts that as worship. I think if I was God, I wouldn't. You're only coming to me, when your head's in the toilet because you drank too much whiskey. Like that. Is that what you're going?
We go down to certain
or you've done something, okay, and now you're crying out. You've rebelled, so now you're crying out to God, and that confounds me because that is actually called lamenting, and God accepts that as worship, and that now, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are times, especially probably going through my divorce. I'm remarried now. But there are probably times where I was lamenting, but that was still acceptable worship to God. Now, but here it is. What I've since learned is that one cannot ever expect to go pray to God and have your answer like that. It doesn't happen. It does not happen like that, at least to my understanding. Okay, and the way you open a prayer is, when I pray, I always thank God for the things I have. And you know what I find sometimes? I find myself like not even praying for anything, any need, but just thanking Him for the things I have. Okay. And just leaving it there. Okay. And so I think when you're trying to live a godly life, yeah, you make mistakes. We're human. We're going to do that. And there's going to be times like, well, God, can I have a slight correction here? Yeah. Something like that. But the way I look at it is like, when I come to God, I want to come to God with praise and thanksgiving. That's it. I don't want to do. I try to live a Christian life, and just if I get myself into a pickle, then I do that. But hey, if I'm living a godly life, then I don't have to worry too much. But that's the thing about prayer. You gotta open up with thanksgiving. Coming to God. Thank you for this. Thank you for what I have. Thank you for the help I have. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my family. All that.
Yeah. Let me ask you
that's
this
how I.
then too. I mean, this is always a big question, in the atheist field is, there's, is God all powerful or is he all knowing? Because this is where the problem I have, especially in the Bible, when you look at, first of all, what Job went through, when you're reading that text and that story, and, I know, people take it, as a literal, but definitely, you know, if I had a son or daughter that worked for me, okay, and I was their boss and they were taking care of my properties or whatever, and I had some rival company going, hey, you take this away from your kids and your kids are going to turn their back on you. And God allows, Satan, to, destroy his crops, kill his family, make him sick, just in a bet to see what this guy is going to stay the course and be a servant to him. Dude, that is one of the most maniacal fucking stories I've ever read. It churns me, it churns my stomach going, what kind of a creator? Because I know that when I had children, never once would I ever think about harming them just for them to stay home and worship me. You know what I mean? So for a lot of when I talk with with other Christians, okay, even if God is real, even if he is the God that everyone says he is, what kind of God is he that he allows certain things, and I know everyone says free will and all this other bullshit, but here's the problem with that. He created this way. It's not free will. If you have created me in a certain way where I'm allowed to say, no, I don't want to believe in you, but then I'm punished for it, that's not a free will. That's a God saying, you either going to obey me and you're going to follow my commandments, or you're going to be eternally punished for it.
Yeah.
That's not free will.
Yeah. Well, that's why there was Christ. So that would change, because, we're not offering sacrifices to the Lord to cleanse our sins. But here it is. To your point, yeah. What kind of God would allow Elisha to call bears out of the forest to devour petulant children?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why did God's chosen people, why are 6 million Jews killed during the Holocaust?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which it's funny that I watched the documentary, and this is one thing that kind of really started me on my path to just kind of questioning what when the POWs liberated, I think it was Dachau. Sure it was. What's that?
Go ahead. I'll comment in a minute.
They liberated Dachau, and under one Jewish man, or next to the wall on this Jewish man's bunk, he had carved in the room in the wall, if there is a God, and I'm paraphrasing, it might be simpler than this, but it was basically, if there's a God, he should get down on his knees and beg our forgiveness. These are his chosen people. You know what I mean?
These are his chosen people. Yes. And so, anyway, yeah, to your point, my great uncle was one of those that went in with Patton. They liberated. I don't remember what camps they liberated, but yeah, it took everything for him not to kill every German soldier he saw, who surrendered, obviously.
Yeah.
And that, but so these things, they're throughout the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. How could this be allowed to happen? That, with the coming of Christ, you see a total shift from that. So that, Simon, is going to take. I know that if I had, I'm going to need another lifetime after I do the New Testament.
Yeah.
To go and study on it, because why? Because they cannot. Those things can't be explained, because the big one called that those kinds of things, they kind of like, wow, how would God ever allow children who are innocent to be devoured just because they're teasing an old man?
Not even that in the Old Testament. I mean, look at all the kids that are sick. And I mean, I personally have had a family experience where my youngest brother, who's 10 years younger than me, his wife and his first child was born severely stomach outside, heart problems, and the doctors only gave him about 9 months to live. He lasted 15 months, and then passed away. And and these are just things where I'm not trying to get too heavy, but I mean, it's just the conversation we're having. Watching that young innocent person die, that never did anything really. I mean, just it infuriates me to this day. It's just like, what kind of fucking loving God would do this to one, a parent, or two, to an innocent being that had, and I don't want to hear about original fucking sin. You know what I mean? Like, that's such a cop out. You know what I mean? That's just, well, it's original sin. Well, it's original sin because somebody wrote it that way to make it in their favor. You know what I mean? So, and again, I'm not trying to get like aggressive or you know, in that, but it makes me angry when, you know, you have all these sick kids out there and sick people and people that need help. And it's like, you know, where is their God for them? What other than, you know, them putting in their tithing money, where the fuck does that money go? You know what I mean? It doesn't go out to the community. It goes so these fucking, you know, pastors can have a better life, or a better car, or a bigger church, or you know, a bigger sound system, and a bigger, you know, cooler, you know, effects when they're playing. You know, it's not Christ-like, and that's a lot of my problem with Christians, is they are so not like Christ. You know, so sorry, didn't mean to go like an angry rant, but it got me for a second.
Well, no, and I'm going to tell you, Simon, that because we didn't get to talk about this in the beginning, but
okay,
maybe this is a good place to shift a little bit here, and then we'll come right back to your point about, you know, about God and the misery that we have on earth. But you know, I want to thank you for doing this type of show. And I don't know, I mean, was it your idea or Roger's idea?
Mine.
Yours. Awesome.
Yeah. This
so how'd you
Roger's only been my guest 3 times. My first guest was Jimmy from Deliverance. Then I want to say we did a 2-parter with Jimmy the first time. Then I did one with Roger. Then I did another one with Roger. Then I did this other amazing actor named Joel. Shit, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, Joel. Can't remember right now. But anyway, then there was another gentleman, Joel Walker, who does Imaginary Music. He does another podcast, but it's more just about Christian music. And so we talked, and so it's kind of just run from there. And then I got to do George from Deliverance. And if you ever watched the George one, me and George knew each other. I knew George when I was 14. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. I went to Sanctuary a few times when Roger was pastor in Hollywood.
In Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you go back and watch the George Ochoa one, I mean, when I was 15, my family had moved out to Colorado for a while, and Vengeance came through. And at 15, you know, I went up and helped unload the show and did security. That was I ended up being a professional bouncer for many years because of that, because I liked working shows. So, I mean, when people kind of criticize, like, me and like, you don't know the music. No, I grew up on this. You know what I mean? Like, I was in LA. I went to the country club and saw Deliverance and the Crucified. I've seen Vengeance. I've seen Tourniquet. I went to Sanctuary. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, I mean, it's just one of those things. I was very, and I said this on my on other interviews. My mission at, you know, 14 was, I'm a bass player. I wanted to be in a band like Mortification and play grindcore and be a youth pastor. You know, that was my you know, ambition from, you know, the age of, you know, 12 when I first started picking up the bass, you know. And it's my last interview I just did was with my homeboy Richard from Ventura, who we hung out together, who we knew each other when he was a Christian. He still is a Christian. I'm not. But at the very end, he got me. I gave him a Betrayal shirt years ago. I mean, like 25 years ago. And so at the end of it, he just pulls out his shirt. He's wearing that Betrayal shirt. I'm like, oh man, you still have that shirt, you know? Because I mean, the Passing had just came out, and that was something we were listening to when we actually one of the Betrayal CD with the Calvary with the 3 crosses. That actually is an inspiration for his last tattoo that he got when we were together.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
I have very deep roots, and I know my Christian music. I grew up in the church. I know what I'm talking about. I might not be a theologian and be able to be like, well, you know, John 14 says this, but I grew up in it, you know? So, and there are times I need to go back and refresh myself, you know, and I need to read that Bible again and kind of get a more adult perspective, because I really haven't probably read it in probably 25 years, you know? So,
yeah. So, I wanted to comment about this, that you know, you're saying, hey, I'm you know, I got to back off a little bit. No, your show is very important, Simon, because in our society, people from different perspectives are not talking about. They're just
Exactly.
not talking.
No.
There's no dialogue. And if you don't have, if as long as you have people from different perspectives, no matter how diametrically opposed they may be, if people are not engaging in these types of dialogues, oh, we're in trouble.
I agree.
We're in trouble.
And
You
I
can see
come
our
to,
government.
I'm saying this too from the atheist point. Like, I love watching shows like Matt Dillahunty on The Line, and he's been a big atheist show on YouTube for years. Aaron something, he's a metalhead guy that does a show. But also, everybody's saying the same thing. Christians are arguing this, atheists are arguing this. Let's not argue. Let's just have the conversation of, okay, man, if you believe what you believe, that's great. You are entitled, and 100%. I'm entitled too. Yep. But also, it's that same of, if you're going to be a Christian, then you better own up to it. Because I get a lot of comments, and it's the status quo comments on my show of, you've left Jesus, come back to the fold. Man, you're not telling me anything fucking new. You're not bringing anything new or intelligent to the conversation. So don't post. Post please, but it's like, say something real. Don't give me lip service that you hear Sunday, because that's all. And the atheists do it too. Like, you got to listen to Dawkins, you got to listen to Hitchens, and yes, these are brilliant men, and they're smarter than I'll ever be. And there are plenty of Christian people that I listen to, and I'm like, they'll stump me at times. I'm listening, and I'm like, I don't know enough about archaeology, but that does sound pretty legit. Fighting in favor of Christianity. But at the end of the day, just for me, there's not enough hardcore proof that makes me say I have to believe this.
Yep.
That's just, people mostly say I'm more agnostic. I'm like, no, agnostic means that there's still that chance that you might believe, but especially when, I've read things like, Hinduism, Buddhism, especially, I think personally, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not Christian texts. I think they are very, very Hindu texts. When Christ is talking about being one with God, letting the God in your mind, the let me show you how to reach Godhood. I don't think it's through sacrifice. I think it's through contemplation of the mind, through deeds, through works, through meditation, to where you get to open up that third eye. You get to open up that chakra and really see what the brain that, we use 10% of our brain, and we don't even know what the other 90% does yet. I think it's an unlocking of
it's oh boy, what did I read on that? Yeah, it's well, I'm not going to comment because I'd be pontificating. There you go.
I hear you.
And again, I know about that, but I know two things because I've read the literature on that. But anyway, yeah, I'll have to go back to my literature and find that. But anyway, I just want to convey to you, your show is extremely important. I wish it would have been during the lockdown, because all I was doing here, we're shut down because I'm a teacher. And so I lived in my house locked up, and all I was doing is making, the paper shopping bags. I was making masks, and I only ever got as far as the eyes before I gave up. Nice. So I could have used your show during the great lockup.
So I think whatever position people hold, as long as we're kind to each other, that's going to be the first step in having good open dialogue. I admit there are times I get cranky and I get pissed off, and I've lashed out on my show on people and responses, and I get snarky. You know what I mean? Because I also come from a place in a time where, man, you respect me, I respect you. You don't, then we're going to have an issue. You know what I mean? So I come from Los Angeles, man. Like, you got something to say it to my face, and we'll deal with it. If not, you better watch out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I just think that both sides, need to ease up. If any Christian were able to show me hardcore, I'd be like, all right, man, I have to reevaluate my thought pattern. I don't remember the gentleman's name. He started the Institute in the 70s, where if you could go and have concrete proof of life after death, Bigfoot, ghosts, demonic possessions, anything, any supernatural like that, their institute would give you $1 million. Well, in my point of view, with all these Christians that believe it, if it could be proven, dude, this institute would be broke in 3 minutes because there'd be so many people going, I have the proof, give me that money.
Yeah, yep. And that's the problem. Like I go back to our earlier conversation that, you just by basing your belief system on observation alone, which a lot of fundamentalists and skeptics do, most of them, probably 99% of them do, except for you and I. You're obviously studying, and good for you. Then you got a problem because you really don't have anything. And I think we've become lazy. I think that our society is just all about the phone now. So we're in for some bad times, Simon. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That is coming. Bad times because people are all about the phone right here, and they wouldn't engage in conversations like we're having because they can't. They can't.
They don't know how. This generation doesn't know how to interact with people other than on their phone.
Well, and the adults too.
They're getting
there. People should be ashamed of themselves. But I wanted to comment on what you said earlier. Sometimes you get a little irate. Well, you can because it's your show, and you should because
I want to show respect and not be an asshole too.
I mean, if they're being jerks, obviously you do that, but you need to challenge people where they're at. Like, well, that's bogus. Call them on it. You have to flare up.
Give me, like I said, give me something real. Give me something you really want to talk about. I mean, there's a couple people that I that have messaged me. I've contacted a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm like, all you're going to do is say the same shit everyone else is saying. So why have to when you're not even open to interpretation and or discussion? When I was talking with Jimmy 2 nights ago and we were doing our interview, it was kind of hey man, I'm going to read you some comments because I mean, Jimmy's a smart motherfucker. Jimmy's a smart man. And he studied a lot of things that I haven't. I mean, because of Jimmy, I've actually reached out to a local rabbi that I want to start studying Judaism because I know nothing about it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I want to sit down with that rabbi and be like, all right, I have questions. I want your answers. I want to know, other than just, Hasidic stuff and some traditions, I know nothing about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I don't really know much about the Torah. And I feel if I'm going to have a conflict or a conversation with somebody, I better know what I'm talking about. I better at least have some information to where I can make an intelligent decision in my own mind about where I'm going to take that information, but people they've been dogging Jimmy. They're like, oh, obviously you've been listening to false religions and obviously you're not the Christian I thought you were. No, maybe you're just not smart enough or lazy or just too fucking lazy to get off your ass and start reading some other things instead of just being told for 1 hour what your preacher wants you to fucking think.
Yep.
That's it. You're just lazy. You're not interested in your faith. You're not engaged in your faith. You're doing the status quo just in case, something happens, you make it to heaven. But you don't know shit all about your faith. You don't know anything about it.
And you have to go outside the faith to learn more about it and why you believe too. Yeah. That like I said, and I could talk ad nauseum about this, but unless you are approaching your belief system not by observation alone, that's the start. That's how you ask the question. It's once you ask the question, then you are obligated, like I said, like Socrates and Confucius said, now you are obligated to go investigate to its end. Okay, so and I'm not to my end yet. I'm going to spend a lifetime doing this, Simon. To establish
knowledge is never a quest to be ended. It's never a quest to be ended. It's always, I want to learn more. I want to know more. And, we get busy with life. We get busy if, you're with our spouses, with our kids, with our jobs, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If I had, funding where I could sit around all day and read and, get the literature I wanted and study. Yes. I could be a Hitchens that went to Oxford. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a working class guy. And that's also what I want to, try and convey to people is that, it's good to have sources. It's good to have other people on your side and literature to read. But at the end of the day, don't take the Bible's word and don't take Hitchens' word. Listen to this. You have to find your own path without the distraction or the influence of anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
My rejection of Christianity wasn't because of one person or because one person in the faith did something wrong. I have so many people like, oh, you've just been hurt by Christians. I'm like, no, I've been hurt by people who say they're Christians, and I don't believe in that. So therefore, I've just been hurt by humans. It had nothing to do with me walking away from saying these people aren't living up to God's standards, so I have to walk away from God. It's me saying, I don't believe God's standard exists. You people can't fucking follow it. I need to go do something else. And I will say, I think for me personally, I've been a kinder, nicer, more open person as an atheist than I ever was as a Christian, because there was always, you don't believe the way I believe, I judge you because God judges you. And that's not our place or anyone's place as humans. If there is a God, that is ultimately his job to do and nobody else's.
Yeah. Well said, Simon. To that end, I want to, if we can briefly talk about other things, because you were alluding to it earlier.
Yeah, go for it, man.
My wife and I, we went to a bat mitzvah the other day,
mm-hmm.
probably about a month ago. And it was probably about a month ago. And they coincided the bat mitzvah with bringing in the Sabbath. So they had it on a Friday evening. And I had never been to anything like that because, I don't know anything about Judaism or the faith or anything, but we were there. And my wife and I are Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
And so we thought, oh, hey, this is familiar, And so we went to it was a nice ceremony, had a nice dinner and that. And my wife and I were leaving, and I go, honey, tonight God accepted our worship. I know where we were at,
mm-hmm.
and I know what those people don't believe Jesus is God.
Totally.
But I said, God accepted our worship tonight. Okay, I'll take that one to the bank. Okay, and so she goes, yeah, and she goes, a lot of those people are going to heaven. And I began to think about it more, and I go, yeah, and a lot of Hindus, a lot of Buddhists,
mm-hmm.
So Muslims,
Quakers.
Yeah.
Quakers, all those people.
Yeah. They're so I think people are going to be surprised by who makes it to heaven and who doesn't. And surprisingly, there's probably going to be more of other faiths than Christians, especially in present day Christianity.
Fundamentalist, conservative Christians, especially.
Yeah. So those fundamentalists you're going to see a lot of those people in heaven. I've been all over the Middle East, just doing USO tours and stuff. That's probably another conversation for another time. Absolutely. Yeah. USO tour. I was a band.
USO.
I went out with bands and stuff.
That's cool.
And I was never one to shy away from, because I went to war zone. I went to the Middle East and the Northern Africa in 2005 during the height. In fact, we couldn't go into Iraq because they were signing the Constitution. We were going to be there. But what I did is, the other guys, they're all about partying, staying out all night, partying with troops, stuff like, hey, I don't know if I'm ever coming back to this part of the world.
Yeah,
so I'm going to go experience it. So I went with the point of contact. We'd go out in the city, and when I was in Kuwait, I got a beautiful copy of the Quran that was given to me. I mean, it is gorgeous. And so I went because I'm curious. I want to study about these cultures. I want to know more about them. And I got to see that. Wow. When I was over there, I was like, well, these people are practicing their faith almost every moment of their day. And when you come back to the United States, people say they're Christians, but they go there on Sunday like the Catholics. Now, I grew up in the Catholic Church. We're probably going to have to have a second and a third conversation. Okay. Definitely. But anyway, we'll talk about my Catholic upbringing like some other time, because that's a whole adventure. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Catholicism is fucking wacky.
Yeah. Well, wait till you read what Martin Luther said about the papacy and the Pope being the Antichrist. So, yeah, go read not the 95 Thesis, but his other thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But
See, this is what I like talking with other people, that they give me ideas to read things. Send me a message of that stuff so I don't.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely, yeah, because
I love reading new stuff.
But because there wouldn't be any Protestants, obviously, if there wasn't no Martin Luther.
Exactly.
Well, maybe there would be, but I believe he was heaven sent. Anyway, but to see that faith being practiced all day long, I was like, I was almost embarrassed, for Christians who well, I'm a Christian. I live like this. Well, if you want to see what a true belief system is, then you go over there. What a true fundamentalist is.
Yeah.
Then you go to places like that. Now, of course, I don't agree.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you think there's some scary shit that goes on with having that devout that devout crazy idea? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you're not doing this a certain way and praying a certain way and doing it at certain times, man, you're an infidel. And I was watching somebody debate an Islamic guy on YouTube the other day, and he was talking about how Islam is so free and whatnot. And when the guy brought up, he's like, okay, well, you say you're that free, but then why aren't us Westerners, look what happened to France, with the Charlie Hebdo, where the guy did the cartoon character of Muhammad, and those people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know this to be 100%, but I mean, I believe that if Christians could be as zealot as the Muslim faith, I think they would. I think if we didn't live in such a Western civilization with the morals and the ethics that we have and the humanism we have, I think Christians would be just as tyrannical as Muslims are. And I think, and for me, and this is no offense to anybody watching the show, this is my idea, or not my idea, but my thought. I think Christianity and Islam are such bullies in their belief system, because once you believe a structure like that, like especially with Islam, you convert this town to Islam, the first thing you're doing, you're building a mosque. Secondly, you're changing their whole dynamic. Secondly, you're teaching them how to pray a certain way, how to dress a certain way, how to eat a certain way. You know what I mean? There's no room for, I will at least say here in America with Christianity, we have, Christ love and at least some tolerance, but I think Islam is there's beautiful parts to their culture, but there's also very dangerous parts. That's all I'm going to say.
You have in those societies is that you have ideologues, and it becomes a problem when the ideologues are a part of, like the royal family and stuff like that, where they build these theocracies and stuff like that. That was the thing with the caliphate that was being established by ISIS, and that, not especially in our modern society, they shun those beliefs. They're not so dogmatic to the point of where they want that. Most people do not want that in those societies, and because you saw what happened under a caliphate, under ISIS.
Oh yeah,
the brutality. It's unimaginable the things that were happening to people that were living under that oppression. And so you have ideologues, and if they get any amount of power, they can turn a whole society, or they force a whole society. Like with Gaza, you don't really see that with the West Bank. I mean, we have all these problems now, which, by the way, this is probably another discussion for another time, but here's prophecy being fulfilled. Okay. But anyway, but you have these ideologues, these jihadists in Gaza, who had taken over from an otherwise peaceful society, because they didn't have the Muslims and the Palestinians did not have their problems that they had, in 2009 and before that. Okay, as soon as Hamas got in there, the Israeli said, "Hey, get out! If you're one of our citizens, get out of there." Okay, but they're still giving them. They were still supplying fresh water to the society, free electricity on that, and Gaza. I don't know if you know the geography too well, like Egypt is a guy, I've been to Egypt, okay, and I'm sure it was nice at one time, but it's like a hellhole there. Okay, it's desert. It's desert unless you're along the Nile. Well, even along the Nile, it's very deserty. Okay, but once you get up into like, the Gaza Strip, Israel, Lebanon, places like that, it's gorgeous. And you're right on the Mediterranean. That place could have been just an amazing place, like Turkey. That is a beautiful country. But here you go. You got some radicals with this ideology that comes in, supplants the whole society, and then now they want nothing but war. They want to see the utter destruction of Israel. They want to see it wiped off the map. So I want to say this, that in most of those countries, some of them are really conservative, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar,
Dubai.
Well, no, the Emirates are very liberal. So is Bahrain.
Really?
Oh yeah. Here it is. They do in Bahrain. They do pray 5 times a day. In the Emirates, they do too. Because I've been all over the Emirates. I've been to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Fujairah,
cool.
Beautiful place. Yeah. And so they pray 5 times a way, but that is their culture. Everybody in that society, all Muslims pray 5 times a way, facing Mecca. And so, but those countries are very liberal. They're all about, hey, let's get the Europeans, let's get the Americans over here. All this money. Those are party towns. I can tell you right now. Yeah. So Simon, if you ever want a good sense of culture and you want to take your family someplace nice, I would say unequivocally the Emirates or Bahrain. And I guess when I was in Qatar in 2005, if you had an Israeli stamp in your passport, you couldn't get in. Okay, but now they have that since the Abraham Accord. Now they've opened up, this trade with that. So now you can probably get in. But anyway, so I guess Qatar is now kind of, especially after the World Cup and done, it's up and coming place. But I'm saying if you want to take your family to a nice place to get a thick sense of culture, you go to the Emirates or Bahrain. Kuwait, to some point, there's not so much to do in Kuwait, but I love that. I love that because you really awesome get
that you've got to experience it firsthand and know what you're talking about, other than just and especially, I live in Kansas, which is a very, redneck kind of state, you know what I mean? So, you have the typical cowboys and that don't like the brown people because of their religion and all. I'm gonna grab a soda. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And that's super cool that you've been able to travel and experience these different cultures and different religions and whatnot. So here's I'm gonna bring it back to the metal for a minute here. As a young man, or as a young metalhead and whatnot, especially with people that want to learn different religions and whatnot. Have you ever read the Satanic Bible?
No,
I think it's a read you should read, because first of all, when people hear the word Satanism, they think of actual devil worship. And Anton LaVey was not a devil worshiper. He was a secular humanist atheist, if you actually read his book, it's quite comical and quite fun. And there is ritual, because I think us as humans, we like ritual and we like repetition. Mm-hmm. Whether it's in church, whether it's in our job, whether it's in our home life, whatnot, we like knowing the steps to get things done. And this is where I've argued with a lot of Christians who have, never read the Satanic Bible or read anything about Luciferianism, which there's so many texts in ancient mythology and whatnot where Lucifer is not the blasphemer of man. He's not the enemy. He's actually the savior of mankind. Because when in the Garden of Eden, when he talks to Eve, he says, do not be subjected to this God. He goes, eat of the fruit and know what God knows. Be God. And so therefore it's a very, there's so much different texts and allegorical things that come with it. It would be one episode for us to go through all of it. But I actually have encouraged this to other Christians. look that stuff up. Don't be afraid of it. Just because you touch the Satanic Bible does not mean demons are coming into your house. You know what I mean? Look,
Hey,
if you're gonna know, what you're fighting on Lucifer's side, you might want to hear Lucifer's story.
right. Simon, well put. In fact, I don't know if you could see it, but back there is
Here?
Satan.
Oh,
Here,
yeah.
let me do something real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
That right there.
Nice.
That red ominous glow back there,
Yeah.
that is Satan.
Yep. Yep.
And
Vader was the antithesis of evil.
And the
It's a
and
nice
the
rig though. That's a damn fine rig. Nice Randall can.
and the well, how much time we got? Don't get me started on here.
Probably 20 minutes.
No, okay, well, we'll get back to the Satanic Bible in a minute. Okay, but here it is. So that is going to be, this is the primary rig for Martyr's next recording. Mark Johnson's got his set up, but you know how you're going to have two guitars. You have A and B.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be one busy cat because this time around I'm like the principal songwriter, which is a miracle itself. We'll talk about that probably some other time. But anyway, So the Randall Satan is Ola Englund. Do you know who that is? He's a YouTuber. Okay, he's just a thrash guitarist, but I can't remember the name of his band. But anyway, so the Randall Satan, when you hear the 7-string guitar on the next Martyr album, that's going to be it.
Nice.
There's a couple because there's going to be, and this is just, I don't know, A or B. You know how you pan them both guitars.
Yeah.
We'll be using, just on my end, I'm recording with 5 different guitars. So anyway, what I want to say real quickly is that the Randall Satan is for the 7-string. The EVH 5150 below it stealth, that's for the drop C 6-string. And
nice.
So
you're just going drop C. All right, you're going heavier than just standard E.
Well, yeah, and then the 7-strings drop A. Yeah. So
damn, that's going to be heavy. That's going to be heavy.
Well, so here it is. I found the magic, and I was thinking about talking. In fact, I'm probably going to get a hold of Eric Peterson from Testament because I was going to tell him. I was going to say, hey, bro, I was aiming for your tone, but I think I ended up getting a better tone than you. You better check this out.
Nice.
So here it is. Here, if you want to know the magic, and you might want to pass this on to Roger. Oh, tell Roger I said hello, by the way, because the last time I talked to Roger, he introduced Martyr on stage at the Brent Events Theater in UC Irvine. At some big concert down there. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
He's fighting leukemia right now. He's been sick. So.
Oh God.
He's doing better, man. Yeah, man. Go on to my channel, and we've done 3 interviews, and they're only about 30 minutes each because Roger gets tired, so he doesn't do long.
Oh man.
But I mean, he's doing better. No, man. He just is gonna start some different chemo, and hopefully, it should have been this time this year he was back on his feet, but there was some other things going on. But yeah, he's doing well. But I will tell everybody this the same, man. Roger is still fucking Roger. He's a maniac, and I love the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that guy too, man. I miss him, man.
He's still Roger. Don't get me wrong.
I don't care what's happened in the past where he's at. I do. I love that guy. Anyway, what I want to say is that the magic, and this is what I'm probably going to write Eric Peterson and tell him, hey, if you want the greatest tone on earth, here it is. So either one of those high gain heads into, I have 2 vintage Marshall cabinets here. The top one is a 1974 Marshall 412 with original creambacks.
Oh, nice.
Creambacks with the C. And the bottom one is a 1972 with the original greenbacks with a G.
Oh, wow.
And when you combine modern high gain heads with vintage cabinets like that, it's the greatest. I mean, it's
Nice.
you know, there. That's how you know there's a God right there.
Yeah. What we're going for, if you've never heard of these bands, check them out. A band called Nails, and a band called Ingrown, and a band called Ringworm. That's the kind of style
Ringworm.
this time. A very, very grindy, very nausea, heavy. So our guitar player Jeremy, me and him were in a hardcore band together here in Kansas City, and so when we first started jamming, he brought over the Orange. I was like, dude, if it just didn't sound good, I'm like, the Orange is great, but for the style we're doing, if we were doing some like Bongzilla or like really heavy sleep kind of like doom metal stuff,
yeah.
But for this project, so we got the 5150 head and a nice Marshall.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yep.
We got the Grindmaster pedal, and so it took us about a month experimenting around to kind of figure out the tone of what we want. So now that we've got our tone locked in, we're what is today, Saturday? Yeah. So hopefully Monday we've got a couple songs, guitar and bass pretty much done. We'll get that recorded, get that sent over to our drummer, Chad, who was in the band Himza, which were on Nuclear Blast for a while. And then send it over to Roger, and then he'll do the other guitar parts to fill in and write the vocals. So he's wanting to have 3 songs done by the end of this month, which I'm hoping we can do. But writing takes time, and I'd rather be perfect than sloppy and just put something out. So
yeah, that's important. You got to do it that way. So is it going to be Vengeance Rising?
Yep.
Awesome, man. Dude, that's great. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of flack. People like change the name, blah blah blah, blah blah blah.
No.
Dude, it's Roger's fucking band, man. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I will not discredit Larry or the other guys other than Roger. Roger was surprised when we were talking one time. I was like, dude, Once Dead is my least favorite record. He's like, why? I'm like, it's too bluesy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't heavy enough. And Larry and all those guys come from a place where they like that old kind of like hard rock bluesy kind of sound, and I'm still shocked that they were able to pull. Especially, I don't know. This is where it kind of gets me. All these old guys that they were like in Vengeance and whatnot, and like they didn't come from a thrash background. They didn't come from a heavy background. They came from classic rock and whatnot, but they were able to produce this fucking masterpiece of Human Sacrifice. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I dig what Roger did on his own, on the last 2 records, just because it was more grindy than it was speed metal or thrash. So, but man, whenever Martyr gets their next album done, man, I'd love to hear it, man. Love to hear it.
Yeah, and you were talking about, and I want to go back to that.
Okay.
The Satanic Bible. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read that. Thank you for the recommendation. I carry and I'm speaking figuratively, of course, but I carry a copy of the Communist Manifesto in my back pocket. And so, because it's important, like I said, our whole conversation has been based around, you've got to put in the research. Mm-hmm. You don't just go off of observation alone, because that's when you get into dangerous territory.
And you can't go off of secondhand information either. You know what I mean? Observation.
There you go.
And no secondhand information. If somebody tells me, hey man, this guy from Martyr is a piece of shit, and he did this and this and this, I'm going to come to you and say, hey man, I was told this about you. You're going to either opt to your flaws in life, or you're going to defend your character. You know what I mean? So secondhand information never flies with me, man. I want proof. I'm hardcore, and if I can't get it, I'm going to go to the source to find it.
Yeah. Well, you're on the right track, Simon. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so atheists having cocktails with Christians. So what were you drinking tonight? I mean, are you putting anything in that Coke?
Nope. Rum and Sailor Jerry. I say it every time. I'm like, if anybody's working for Sailor Jerry, I will say this. The first time I did that, and I was like, send me some. Dude, Roger I told him where I lived. He found a local liquor store and bought me a case of it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a dude.
Yeah. Unfortunately, maybe I drink a little too much, but it went pretty quick. I was like, this is going to last me the summer. And then a couple months later, I was like, fuck, I got to go buy my own booze now, but No, Roger's a super good guy, and you know, I appreciate talking to real people. You know, I will say this. You know, I mean, I was in Vegas a couple months ago hanging out with Jimmy, and we went out
Oh yeah.
to the Golden Tiki, which is a tiki bar in Vegas that I love, and we went
Oh
out
man.
gambling the next day, and you know, he's you know told me some things about what you know Christians to my face were nice, but then behind my back just talk a lot of shit. You know, and I'm like, that's not what you do. I could be on if you and I were screaming at each other the whole time and being like, fuck you and I hate this and you're wrong and you're wrong, you know, be real with me. Don't give me lip service. I don't want to hear it because I can do something else with my time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I
Yeah,
want, if you
absolutely.
don't want to have a real conversation and, you know, you can ask me the hardest questions in the world. And if I don't have an answer, I'm going to say I don't have an answer, you know, vice versa.
Yeah.
And
Well, you've got an important show, Simon.
I think so.
And
I think I'm on to
and
something. You know,
um,
unfortunately, there's a lot of there's been quite a few Christian artists that I've reached out to, and I will say, and this is not, you know, Chris is different. He's busy. We're going to get to Chris from Betrayal, hopefully in the next month or so when he's got some more downtime. But there have been literal Christians that you know I was big fans of, and they're like, "Nah, man, I don't want to do your show. I don't want your questions." I'm like, that's actually sad. And
yeah, that.
if the Christians that were buying and supporting these people knew that, then you're gonna have to fucking really maybe judge if they're even about what they say or if it's about just getting paid.
Yep. Yeah. You know, and it quite. And I go back to what I've been saying this whole time. It's like, well, what kind of a foundation do they have established for their belief system? You know,
Yeah,
like I said, fundamentalist, or skeptic. Uh, if you're not putting in the work, then you know your belief system is like,
yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
mean,
you're
you can
standing
have
on paper.
yeah. If you want to
You
have
know.
that paper thin house on the sand, hey, that's fine. But be careful because one day when the wave hits you, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
ask yourself
Yeah.
some hard fucking
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been there. And it's not like one day I just woke up and was like, man, I'm an atheist. I'm a happier person. This was a transition of lament of, am I doing the right thing? Am I too scared to walk away? Do I want to hedge my bet? Do I want to be that guy being phony just in case I died tomorrow that I made it to heaven? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
finally, when me personally, man, when I dropped it all and walked away, for me, it was the best thing that I could do for my life. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to ever be a phony in anything I believe in, or any project, or any cause I believe in. You know, and I think most Christians are too scared to really look at themselves in the mirror and say, where am I on this? What do I really want to achieve? Am I just trying to do this so I can go to heaven? Or, you know, but what about the life here that we have? Or if you're going to be, you know, in platitude and in sorrow because, you know, you keep breaking these rules and you're confessing, but you're not changing, that's not real Christianity. You know, that's just you. That's being a Catholic. You know, saying seven Hail Marys and some
Oh,
and some novenas so that you know
okay.
you get you know and confession. You know, I mean, everybody has to look at the mirror one day and say, if I were to die today, what would I expect? And for me, I expect to go into the ground. My energy that is in within this body will go into the universe, and I'll be a tree, or I'll be a part of the light, or you know, or I might not be shit. But you know what? I know this, that if I were to die right now and I did stand before God, the God that's in the Bible, I would still want nothing to do with him. Because I'd be like, you know what, man, you had so much opportunity to do the right thing by your people, and you haven't. Why is it 2,000 years ago you want to reveal this magic when you know it's a Bronze Age belief? There's no recording. There's no way of you know real proof. It's all you know fucking New Testament is you know 30 to 100 years non visual. You know what's eyewitness account. You know what I mean? You have Christian scholars that even say we don't know who wrote the four books. We don't know where the original texts were. You know, so for me, there's just so much things that just don't add up to where it makes me say I have to go this route. You know?
Yeah.
But for the people that find comfort and solace in it, as long as you're doing the right thing and being a good person with a belief, kick ass. Have fun with that, you know?
Yeah, well, Simon, you're definitely on you're on the inquiring path, and
Mhm.
that's the important path to be on. I mean, and I would just encourage you, do not give up. And whatever you find at the end of this, whatever
Totally.
you never stop your search. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to convey to you. You
And
never stop
ultimate
your search.
truth is ultimate
But
truth. Whether I'm right or
yeah,
wrong, if say in 10 years from now I found some ultimate truth that brought me back, then it's the truth that's going to bring me back. It's not going to be
yeah.
you. It's not going to be dogmatic, sermons. It's not going to be, whatever it is. Truth will always prevail. Always.
Yeah, I was just sideswiped our earlier conversation about Judaism and going
Mm-hmm.
to that bat mitzvah on the Sabbath. I just totally got sideswiped because I used to think to myself, well, here it is. Um, okay, um, okay, here it is. I'll say that. Okay, the Christians basically say, oh, those Jews, they don't believe Jesus is God, so they're going to hell. Well, I don't believe that because the Adventist faith doesn't believe that a merciful God would have eternal weeping and gnashing of teeth for people who don't accept God or Christ, before they die. And we believe that, okay, if you've built up, if you've earned your name in the book of life, then you inherit heaven. If
Yeah.
for whatever reason you don't, you go to sleep and that's it. People
Totally.
like Mao Zedong, and here's the thing too. I want to talk about this for just one
Yeah.
quick second.
But that's a
The
great thing where,
people,
that's a great idea is that, if you are blessed or, if like you said, if you make it to the book of life, then you get an eternity, continuing. But if you don't, you're just done. That makes more fucking sense than hell and damnation and hanging out with Lucifer while he pokes you in the butthole with a fucking pitchfork. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
it does.
the fiery brimstone and demons and all this other shit. It's like, God
It,
damn, man, like I'm already not going to be in paradise. How much fucking more do you want from me? How much more can you put me through, man? Just
that's
kick me in the nuts every 10 seconds for eternity. Come on, man. You know?
oh, oh man, that's a good one. I hope that's being recorded. Is that being recorded? That's a
It's
good
being
one.
recorded.
Okay. Hey, no, uh, oh, I lost my train of thought. That was funny.
Bat mitzvah,
No, there was
people
that.
go to heaven.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so according to the Bible, and what the way we Adventists understand is that people always, when they go like, well, Hitler, the number one hated person ever on earth. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I get that. But you know who actually tops him? Who nobody ever talks about ever,
Stalin is number
ever.
two, then fucking that Chinese general that killed like 28 million
Thank you,
people.
thank you. No, 100 million
Yeah.
people. And the communists always argue that the totality of communism is responsible for 100 million deaths. No, Mao Zedong. I read a biography,
Yeah.
and I know enough even outside of the biography I read on him. And I'm not even done with the biography, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. 100,
Mao
100 million.
Zedong.
Yeah.
Uh, Mao Zedong is responsible for 100 million deaths, and here it is, and countless enslavement beyond that, all the way up to today.
Yeah.
He is responsible for that because Xi Jinping believes he is Mao Zedong reincarnate. He thinks he is the absolute successor, and so yes, I will put Hitler there, and Stalin right next to him. But Mao has got them beat by light years.
Yeah. Hitler to me is the Michael Jackson of evil,
But
and then that guy's like the Kanye. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows Michael, so you got to throw Michael out there. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, like, and I'm not making light. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get a little. Any Jewish people that are watching this, I am not knocking what Hitler did at all. fuck that. I'm sorry, Hitler's a piece of shit. I am not making that the Holocaust a joke or lighting, but yes, there have been dictators that have done worse than Hitler historically.
Well, Simon, you're safe because if you check my genealogy, the Portuguese lineage, there's a Jewish element there because
Nice.
because of the fruit. Pereira, Pereira is the fruit, and the Jews when they were coming, because the Jews. One thing people have to understand about the Jews is that they've had persecution across the whole planet. I mean, even in Japan, if you can believe that, they suffered persecution for eternity. This is God's chosen people, but they've always suffered persecution. So you're safe saying that because you're talking to somebody who has.
But I'm saying for the non-intelligent person that might be watching this, that doesn't.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't know, their history, or they hear a tidbit of something and then and want to spout off on something. Holocaust happened, horrible. Fuck Hitler, done.
Yeah, but I want to start bringing in people I talk to is like, okay, we need to bring Mao Zedong into this because these are small fries compared to Mao Zedong and what he wanted. And
let's also bring into what communism or computer.
Got it.
There we go.
Awesome.
Sorry. Yeah. The show. I lost contact. My computer died. So
it happens. The worst time it could happen is if I'm in a class and the computer dies, because that's what I get paid for if I'm online and it dies. So it hasn't happened yet.
Or when things get interesting, you know what I mean? Things are getting interesting.
So I imagine I love this dialogue we're having, and I know that Roger comes in here and there, and that it looks like Jimmy too. I hope that you have me on, perpetually.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I want to talk to a lot of different people. I mean, the thing is, I started this show because for me, music was the foundation of a lot of my Christian faith and my Christian ideology because I was listening to Christian music. So when I started this show, it was me basically wanting to talk to the Christian bands that when I was a Christian influenced me. But I mean, I want to talk to tons of different people. I mean, and that's great. I mean, I'm not starfucking. I don't want to talk to just guys in big bands or whatnot. I want to talk to a ton of different people, and I hope that people see the show and know that like I'm a nice guy. I want to be able to have open dialogue with you, even though we have conflicting ideology. But still, it can be done in a respectful way to where we can always open each other's minds in some way. And if not, hey, at least we had a cool story about a band or about a situation,
Yeah, well, I want to underscore the point that people from opposing people, we need to learn how to dialogue. If we believe different things, we need to learn how to talk to each other. And we need to learn how to talk about difficult things because this
respect each other's ideology or lack of there.
Yeah, and this causes people to go and study. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the probably the greatest quote I've ever heard that I adhere to is that Thomas Jefferson once said that if you wish to be ignorant and free, I'm paraphrasing here. But he said, if you wish to be ignorant and free, then you wish what never was and never will be. Okay, yep. And that's a total. He said it more elegantly than I ever could.
But it's a very strong statement still, even in the simplistic form. If you want to just close your eyes to the world and be blissfully ignorant, you can do that. But you're going to miss out on so many amazing things that happen within this lifetime.
Yeah, so you've got a really important show, and I definitely want to come back and talk because we didn't get to my childhood. We didn't get to some of the faith things that need to be talked about. And but yeah, you're I guess you're gonna hit up a rabbi to come on. That's awesome. And then,
I've been trying. There's a rabbi that I'm really interested in. He has a lot of credentials. He's from Australia, and he's within my neighborhood.
That's awesome.
I've reached out to him 3 times, and he hasn't called me back yet.
Yeah, keep working on him.
I think what I'm going to do is just roll up to when they're open one day to the synagogue and just be like, let me talk to Rabbi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, another person I want to really interview is Ted Haggard from New Life Church back in Colorado Springs. He was a pastor of the mega church that got busted. He was very anti homosexual, and then came out, having a homosexual meth driven affair. And he was the president of the Evangelicals of America when George Bush was in office. He was his spiritual advisor, and he was our pastor when we lived in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So
those are good conversations. Yeah,
they're good.
And
I just want it's going to be. It might not be the nicest conversation, but at the end of the day, sometimes you get tough conversations have to be had.
They do, because nobody's dialoguing. It puts people in an uncomfortable position, but we've got to talk about these things, because it helps all of us out. It really does. Because and also too, I wanted to encourage you, reach beyond the fundamentalists as far as like a monotheist. You know? Like you said, the Hindi or the Buddhists, and it's a big country. You can find them. They're out there now.
Yeah, there's two of my favorite bands from New York. They're Krishna core bands, Shelter and 108. They were Hare Krishna hardcore bands, from New York City. The guys from Bold and from Youth of Today, once they got done with hardcore, they started doing more of the Krishna core, where it was Hare Krishna hardcore. Which is, if you've never heard Shelter or 108, listen to them, man. 108's first record.
108?
Yeah, which is the 108 steps to get to enlightenment. And,
wow,
man, their band is it's one of when I want to relax. Those are like one of the two bands I throw on. I'm like, I just want to chill out to it.
Hopefully they're not steps like the Great Wall.
No.
If you ever go walk the Great Wall, 108 steps, it can't be. It almost can't be done. So
that's interesting. Is the Great Wall 108 steps too?
No. What it is that they stagger the steps, and like they're not uniform. That's the idea, was that the barbarians, the Mongols, couldn't bring their horses up because the steps are like different.
Strategic steps, so that they're
which is funny because the Mongols busted through an area of the wall anyway, invaded. So and they were great. And I got a picture. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. But I am at the top of one of the sections of the Great Wall, and I got my arms around some Mongols.
Nice.
It is awesome. Talking about metaphor.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's fantastic. And like we were talking, definitely, send me some, text me or, message me some of the literature you were telling me about. And I always, like I said, I encourage, man, read anything you can about Luciferianism, or, and pick up the Satanic Bible, man. Because honestly, if you put the 11 tenets of Satanism against the 10 Commandments, it's actually going to scare you which ones you think are going to be more ethical.
Okay. I will read that. I absolutely will. The next Martyr album. Now, here's the plan.
Okay.
And I'm letting the cat out of the bag here. We're going to release 2 singles, and I believe only one of those is going to be on the new album. There's going to be 8 songs on the new album, and they're based on the Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis. And so
Narnia guy, the C.S. Lewis Narnia.
No, the Screwtape Letters.
I have not heard of that. I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to send you. I got a PDF of it.
Sure.
And then I'll send it to you. But the idea behind the Screwtape Letters is that Screwtape is actually a greater demon, and he has a lesser demon that he's coaching, Wormwood, and he sends him out into Earth to tempt people.
Okay.
Into sin and to do things, because sin's rebellion from God. And so he goes through this whole rigmarole of sending Wormwood, and he's coaching them all along in that. Well, the next Martyr album, and it's untitled. All the songs have titles. There's 8 songs. But it's going to be based on Screwtape Letters. And what happens is Screwtape in the next Martyr album is coaching. He's no longer coaching. Maybe he is coaching Wormwood, because in the first song is about suicide.
Okay.
This individual has contemplated, went through it, and has committed suicide. And in one of the lines in the second song, so the first song is called Macabre Isolation, because I read some studies. Dr. Eileen Taylor wrote extensively on suicide in that, and she says that when you get into an isolated place with suicide, boy, it's going to be an act of God, or there's got to be some people there, or it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a dangerous spot. I talk about that in the song. Okay. So anyway, this person takes their song. That's the first song. The second song, again, the Mephistophelian, a devil. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Screwtape. Okay. So the opening lines, Screwtape is saying, Wormwood, raise your glass and be lauded, for you have, I don't have the lines in front of me, for you have caused your patient, because when Wormwood is working on his people, they're called patients. Okay. And you're going to see this. Okay. And for raise your glass and be lauded, for your patient, oh, there it is. For your patient has taken his life by his own hand. And that. So he's congratulating him on a good job.
He's cheersing him, saying you did
your
job well.
Yeah. So throughout the song, it talks about how you release the scourge on the earth, to tempt people, to corrupt people's lives, and that. And then by the end of the song, Screwtape is saying, okay, now watch and observe, as he goes to work. But Simon, and you'd probably like this line, and it will probably cause Christians or fundamentalists to stop and think about this, that here is a really important line. And this is just one of those creative aspects that I attribute to my Holy Father giving me this music, because we're going to save that for another discussion, because we got to talk about my Catholic upbringing and all that. Hey, and Simon, we have not talked about the punk rock influence from me being in London '78 and what it has to do with. So we've got a whole nother conversation coming.
Oh yeah,
not tonight, but anyway, there are lines. I don't want to send them out just yet, because it's not published and it's not finite. But here it is. I'll put it out there so people can know what to expect. But there are lines, and there's a part where I wrote entirely in Latin. It's a bridge, okay?
Cool.
A really heavy bridge, yeah. The song's fast, except for it breaks down here, real Slayerish.
Nice.
So I go into the Latin mode, and then, but one of the closing lines is Screwtape is talking about how people attribute everything that goes bad and all the temptation to Satan. But here it is, and here's the big but. Okay. People, and I'm talking skeptics and fundamentals, or neither, agnostics. Okay. At times, they're responsible for their own woes. The person who doesn't get out of bed when they should to go to work and like that, like, yeah, I'm gonna sleep. I got a lot of money from the government this week, or during COVID stuff. I'm not going to worry about working. I'm going to stay in bed. Okay, that's not sin. That's not rebellion from God. That is just laziness. That is not, and nor, here it is, nor is that Screwtape or a demon, anybody influencing them not to get out of bed. So everything is pushed. Things like this can be pushed on Satan, but you know what? We humans, and we are imperfect. Okay. Not from creation, but because what happened in the Garden. But we'll.
I hear you.
For the sake of argument, we're not going to go there right now.
I get the allegory of what you're going for.
So here it is. Okay, so humans at times are responsible for their own plight.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that's an important. It's not the line that a lot of fundamentalists want to hear in a song, a Christian song about that. And people think like, oh my God, he's listening to Satan. Look at this line he put in there. Okay.
Yeah.
But I understand it, because you have to go and read the Screwtape letters. You have to understand where it's coming from, where C.S. Lewis was coming from, to understand the writing of this song. Okay. And once you have that, like I said, our whole conversation is about like, you can't just go off of observation. You have to study. You have to, and you're doing that obviously, but you have to study. If you come to this next Martyr album and say like, well, he's saying this, he's saying that, and like, what about that? Like that, then you have not read the Screwtape Letters. 2, you do not understand C.S. Lewis, and 3, you have no understanding of where I'm coming from on some of the stuff. So that was a really important line that I want to put out there. It's going to be the second song on the album.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that I think for so many Christians, and even maybe non-believers and whatnot, it's either oh, I'm having a bad day. It's either God's not blessing me, or I'm having bad luck or whatnot. But sometimes you make the choice. We all make the choices. I make the choice every time I sit down. Am I going to have a cocktail? Am I going to have a cigarette? Am I going to, you know what I mean? Am I going to drive too fast? There are things that we do as people that affect our life that have nothing to do with supernatural. It's just the decisions we make. I've been a cigarette smoker since I was 15, 47. I'm probably going to die of cancer or, emphysema or something like that. But you know what? I know that because I made the choice, and I continue to make the choice to smoke because I enjoy it. Will it catch up with me one day? Yes, it will. But I know that. And I still make the choice. If I really was like, man, I got to get my shit together, I tried quitting one time and it lasted 3 days. And I was like, fuck it, I need a cigarette, But that's the thing, is that everybody wants to just put it on either a boogeyman or a savior. And at the end of the day, 99.9% of what we do is based off of how we want to steer our lives and how we direct the ship that we are fucking working with.
Yeah. In the 10 Commandments, there's nothing that says anything about going to the casino and gambling your check away when you should put food on the table because that's all you got. That's all you can cover. And so that is not a sin. It's definitely a problem for your family. But anyway, yes. So that second song on the Mephistopheline is the title. But yeah, it talked. That's where Screwtape says, okay, watch and observe how I go into the world. So this picks up where C.S. Lewis left off.
Cool. I'm going to look it up, definitely.
It's not out there because we haven't recorded it yet.
No. I'm saying the C.S. Lewis.
Oh, yes, good. Yeah. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you the PDF, dude. You will absolutely love it. And I don't know if Rogers read it, but you might want to send it to Roger too. It's C.S. Lewis.
Yeah,
one of the greatest literary minds ever.
Definitely.
And so
speaking of, I'm going to tell you real quick an album you need to check out if you've never listened to it, and you have to listen to it from start to finish. It's not a record where it's got the hits. The whole record is a story. It's a hardcore band from New York called Life of Agony, and they have an album called River Runs Red, where
I'm going to write that down. Life of Agony. Where's my pen?
River Runs Red. Listen, you have to listen to it. The whole thing. It's about. We were talking about suicide. It's about a kid who's going through some rough stuff who ends up, committing suicide.
Who's the band?
Life of Agony.
Okay, and what's the record?
River Runs Red.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to look. I'll look that up.
But like I said, bro, you take 45 minutes of your day. You got to listen to it because it starts off with a song, then it has like the old '90s, like you're hearing like him playing his messages and things that are going on in his life, and the continuation of how it gets to the end, and it's one of the most impactful. And it sucks that this band never got big because it's one of the best fucking records I've ever listened to in my life.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I am going to listen. I because I've been trying to do the research and find like, wow, I don't think there's ever been a thrash concept album out there, And then Marcus told me. He said, well, I think Halloween did one, and I don't know. Did Halloween do it?
If they did it shitty because that band sucked.
Yeah, they're like power. They're like power. I'm not about Megadeth, any of that power metal stuff at all.
Megadeth.
I'm a purist.
Peace Sells Who's Buying was a great record. That was pretty much their only great record. Symphony
I made myself like that album. So
Megadeth is just Megadeth, but I mean, like, I don't even like and then that's what always just kind of annoys me is everyone's like, oh, it's Metallica and Exodus and this. Dude, in the 80s, 86, you had Napalm Death Scum come out. In 87, you had Massacres From Beyond come out. You had Propane's Violence come out. There are so many just as good records that came out from 86 to 88 than Metallica. I'm sorry, man. Like, fuck Metallica, man. After And Justice for All, they sucked. The Black Album was bullshit, and the rest.
Oh yeah, right. Yep. I had a buddy try to talk me into the Black Album. That doesn't work. It doesn't work, dude. It doesn't work. Enter Sandman is okay. And dude, I'm going to tell you what. Oh no, it was And Justice for All. Here it is. Here's a Jimmy Brown story. So, and I talked to Jimmy Brown. Oh God, has it already been a couple of years? Maybe a year ago. I talked to Jimmy. I called him up, and I go, Jimmy. I go, do you remember that time you were standing in the line at the Troubadour in Hollywood, and you're standing in line to see Metallica because they went under the name Freight Ends. Nobody knew about Freight Ends.
Oh, right on. Okay.
So this is the week before And Justice for All came out.
Oh, right on.
And so for some reason, inexplicably, Marcus and I hope you know I'm talking about Marcus Colon. Betrayal. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So Mexican dude, curly hair, super nice guy.
Puerto Rican.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Marcus and I, inexplicably, he probably knows better than I do because I can't really remember. I go, Jimmy, do you remember the time Marcus and I went caught up in line with you at the Troubadour because Metallica was playing 2 shows that night because the place only holds Troubadour. You've probably been to Troubadour.
I worked in Troubadour.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It only holds 200 people.
Yeah.
And 50 of them are in the balcony.
Yeah. I used to work for a company in Ventura. My main job, either when I was at the Ventura Concert Theater, and I apprenticed right around the corner at the Ink House because I'm a body piercer. But whenever there weren't enough shows in Ventura, they had a company they would call, and they would let us know what shows were going on at different venues. And so we were like, all right, we'll take this show. I'll work this show. I'll work this show. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The Roxy, the Whiskey, the Troubadour, the Palace. Where else in Hollywood? Viper Room, a few other places. So yeah.
Hey, sorry to keep the conversation going this way. Okay, so what did you do when people wanted to stage dive? Because I love the stage divers. You said no way.
As long as you're on the stage and you're hopping off, I'm cool. If you're hopping up and fucking around, you're getting thrown off.
Okay.
If you're actually a stage diver where you hop on, but again, I came from punk shows, which that shit was totally normal.
Okay.
I mean? Yeah. So I had no beef with stage divers. As long as you were, if you got on the stage and you maybe skanked a minute and fucking jumped off, no thing. But if you jumped on stage and were trying to grab somebody or stay on the stage for a minute, then you're getting tossed. But yeah, dude,
okay,
stage diving.
Okay, great. Because I know, some clubs like, hey, no stage divers. You got to throw it back in.
Okay. Now, if the club was saying no, this, I didn't the club
like the Roxy would probably say no stage, right? Or
yeah, I don't remember a lot of the shows I worked at the Roxy weren't like thrash or anything. It was either like,
oh, okay,
shitty like Enough's Enough or like Wango Tango Bango or whatever those shitty bands were. You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
once a couple times like LA Guns.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
all right.
Yeah, but like the Whiskey. One of the roughest shows I ever worked was at the Whiskey. It was White Zombie opening for Pantera on the Vulgar.
Oh God, yeah.
And then at the Whiskey another time when I did Body Count after the first Body Count album came out, that was a rough fucking show.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, dude.
Slayer a couple times. I got stabbed at Slayer once. Yeah. but a lot of the rough shows like Ventura, one of my favorite shows, it was such a weird show, was it was Infectious Grooves opening, Suicidal Tendencies, and then George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars.
Oh, whoa.
Such a weird show, but it was so much fun. It was one of the funnest shows I've ever worked.
Yeah. So you remember, you probably remember, and most people would not remember this unless they lived it, but you probably remember that the purist, and when I mean purist, I'm talking like the Slayer fanatics will probably just Slayer, probably Suicidal Tendencies,
Yep.
probably bands like Corrosion to Conformity, DRI. Okay, if a band like Anthrax came to town, or anybody, or like Megadeth, and are playing a show, do you remember that maybe they wouldn't get booed off stage, but boy,
oh yeah,
the crowd was having, because those purists, they're all about the absolute extreme hardcore.
Oh yeah,
and if you had any melody,
oh yeah,
in your song, then you were gonna get it. It would only be you.
Yeah,
it would only be you stopping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I only saw Megadeth once, and I didn't even work the show. I saw them open at the Hollywood Bowl with they were the headliners, and it was Alice in Chains opening with Primus. It was a weird show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Megadeth was never my thing. Like I respect Dave Mustaine, like, but I just never gave a shit. Like they were never hard enough for me, you know, like for me, like, you know, like when I would go see Deicide or Cannibal Corpse or you know, Tuned or you know, Death, and you know, those kind of men. Those were the pits I enjoyed. I like whenever those kind of shows would come, I'd always be the first one to volunteer to do pit security. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'll do it because I'd love, you know, I was fucking 19 at the time, dude. I loved getting into fights and being rough and, you know, and throwing, you know, jacking dudes and choking them out and throwing them out. And I love that shit, you know. Now I'm like 47. I'm like, oh, it's 9:00. I'm not going to see that band. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. You know, the last, it was funny. I took my daughter just before COVID to her first metal show in, it was Municipal Waste was the headliner with Carcass, Napalm Death, and Power Trip, which
wow.
You know, yeah. And no, I'm sorry, it was Sick of It All. And so Sick of It All is playing, and the pit's not rough. And my daughter's like 19. She's like, never been in the pit. I want to go in. I'm like, I'd go in during this band if you're going to do it. You know, like I wouldn't do the other ones.
Yeah.
But she didn't. But the Napalm starts and shit gets rough. And she grabs it. She just kind of takes me and she's like, I don't want to go in there, Dad. I'm like, you know, I don't either. But, you know, 15 years ago, I would have wrecked those dudes. I would have went in there just fucking wrecking them. You know, I'm like, now I'm like, it's too old. I don't want to get hurt. You know? Like,
that is awesome, man. Yeah, no, I remember some of the venues were you know, they were definitely no way with the stage diving, but God, I don't remember the other Christian bands doing the thrash bands that, but Martyr, when I saw the opportunity, I always took it. And I'm sure there's videos out there where I got my bass on, and if the crowd is condensed enough where they can't back out of it, and that, well, I would always initiate the stage dive, always.
Yeah.
I mean, every show, because do you know how? Well, of course you. Well, no, you're a big guy.
But I've stage dived one time in my whole life. That's because the crowd was so fucking compact.
And then everybody went.
No, they couldn't move. So that's the only way to get it. You know, other than that, I'm not a stage diver. No, that's not me.
Well, I can tell you, there's nothing more exhilarating because, you know, I'm 5'11", 160 pounds. I'm skinny, man. Yeah. So back then, dude, it was nothing for. I'd see the crowds condensed, and that it probably. I mean, if it's there's several times because it's the most exhilarating experience to run and launch out of the. So
it's funny. The very first Christian show I went to was at the Country Club, and I had been to Sanctuary a few times. Met George Ochoa from Deliverance, and he gave me a flyer, and it was them opening. They were headlining. It was Crucified, and then Scattered Few, and so I was.
Oh yeah,
I was 14. And at 14, I was 6'1". I'm 6'6" now. You know, so I was already 6 foot, like 6'1" at 13, 14. And so they dropped me off at the show, and Scattered Few were cool. I'd never seen a band like that. I was like, these guys are Christian. This is weird, at 14. And the Crucified came and ruled. And then, yeah, I just remember, some kid launched the stage drive and the crowd moved and smacked his
Oh,
head.
yeah, that would happen a lot. And I don't know why,
Yeah.
dude. What is up with that?
Well, it was just weird because this is where I've always thought of Bob Beeman. I've never met the man. I've never spoken to him, but he would be at the shows in like that white fucking fringe leather jacket, like he was going to see, like, Rats or some shit like that, with the cowboy boots and the tight wash watch. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he got on stage and was all freaking out, like, all right, everybody, no more moshing, no more stage diving, no more, and the kid ended up being fine. And it took a little bit, for the Crucified to come back. And by the end of the set, everybody was still doing what they do. And then I remember Deliverance came on and like 90% of the crowd left.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody just kind of rolled out, So, but again, speed metal versus what, for me, and I told this to Greg and to Jim when I interviewed them, like for me, like the two most legit sounding Christian bands, me growing up, were the Crucified. I think Pillars of Humanity can last against any fucking record. Suicidal, SOD, DRI, Anthrax. That record is fucking perfect. That and Mortification, Scrolls of Mugloth. I would put that up against, Once Upon the Cross, up against Spiritual Healing, up against, Blessed Are the Sick from Morbid Angel, because that was a grindcore record. Those were the first two bands really that I thought were like, man, these guys, they might be Christian, they're Christian, but they're not doing it in the cheesy Christian. And nothing against Deliverance and Tourniquet and Vengeance, they all had their own thing, but those were the first two. I was like, damn, man, like those were the two bands I could play to like my non-Christian friends that would actually give it a hear,
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were awesome.
Yeah.
And Mark, he is quite the songwriter. And I just wonder what would have happened if Mark would have been in the Crucified beyond the one album he did.
Yeah.
Because he is a phenomenal songwriter.
I think Jim was what they needed. I'm sorry. I think Jeff, for me, like for my two favorite bass tones in like hardcore punk rock are one, Craigerhead from Sick of It All. He's got the best fucking bass tone. And Jeff from the Crucified for that style of music, not for like heavy, but for like that thrashy punk rock hardcore stuff. Sick of It All and the Crucified. Those two guys have the best. I've tried my hardest to replicate that bass tone, and I still don't know how the fuck they do it.
Well, what are you using, Simon? For your bass?
I've got a full stack Ampeg. Yeah, and then I've got
dude, yeah,
and I've got the Ampeg SVT3 Pro head.
Enough said.
Yeah, but still, I especially now, like coming from what I was playing before, which was more hardcore, more like New York style hardcore, to trying to play metal now. It's been an adjustment because I'm trying to I tweak with my shit all the time. I'm like, man, I'm not hearing it. So I think I'm gonna go get a fuzz pedal for my bass to give it that little more crunch, other than the clean sound. So
yeah. When we're not doing this too, you and I can converse about that too, because cool. What the tip was giving me, because I got the big Ampeg SVT 300, the 300 watt tube head, with the 810, and I had a custom 410 built for me. But here it is. The engineer told me, he goes, "Oh, hey, just plug your bass into your Pro Tools and run SansAmp." No. I'm like, "Oh, whoa, okay." So this guy, he's in the know. And I go, wait a minute. I spent thousands on this gear. He goes, yeah. He goes, that's it. He goes, you plug into your interface and run SansAmp through Pro Tools. I'm like, oh. Now, hey, Simon, real quick, because I got it right here. Okay. If you're thinking fuzz pedal, and if you got the funds here, watch this. Sorry. So,
okay,
Okay.
Okay. Ernie Ball.
So the Music Man, 5-string. But here it is. It's got a built-in. It's called the Dark Ray. And if you
Okay.
look it up online, and that it's got a roasted maple neck, and it's got a preamp in it that has fuzz and distortion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So if you're looking, if that's what you're looking for, uh, uh, because I had a 6-string PV, but it's like it's not going to work for what we're doing. So I stepped up and got that. I found that at the NAMM show, and
what we're trying to sound like with the new Vengeance record. Look up these three bands. This is like mainly what we're trying to write. It's a band called Nails, just Nails, and then another band called Ingrown, and then the last band is Ringworm. That's the stuff we're trying to go for. Very very not spastic, but very blast beat, grindcore, no song more than 3 minutes long.
That's awesome. Who's playing drums for you guys?
Chad from Himza, who was he's a metal drummer. His band calls Himza, Himsa. They were on Nuclear Blast.
Okay.
He's a great drummer. His shit's not what I was into. It's definitely more like melodic power metal, and that's not my thing. You know, I mean, I appreciate it, but it's just not what I like playing.
Yeah.
And my old guitar player, Jeremy, who played in a couple bands with me here, and then Roger. So it's just us four right now. So
yeah, awesome, man. Dude, I like to hear that Roger's creating again, and that you guys are hooked up like that. With Betrayal, when you get Chris, I'm sure he's going to tell you the whole story. But their drummer, especially after Brian Muse left, on that second album, I'm sorry, I don't know their catalog that well. The Passing, that second album. Okay,
yeah, that was
second. The Passing. So they had a full on hair metal drummer for that album, but he executed so well, the thing with that album is that Bill Metoyer of Vengeance fame, he has a pseudonym, and if you go to if you look at The Passing, the producer on there, I can't remember the name. Well, that's Bill Metoyer.
No shit. Okay.
And you guys can get Bill Metoyer to produce your album. If you put his name on it, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if he goes under pseudonym, he'll produce.
Actually, I talked to Jimmy, man. He's going to mix and master our shit for us.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So we talked, and I told him the bands. He's like, well, show me. So I sent him links, and he's like, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm like, okay, I know you can, Jimmy. Jimmy, you can do anything, man. He can do anything.
He does.
Metal to fucking, David Bowie shit to dude, that Amy Grant cover he did. I was like, really, dude, you're doing an Amy Grant cover and it was good? I was like, fuck, I hate Amy Grant.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And that's the thing too. When he came in and did Frantic Demo, the Martyr Frantic Demo and stuff, I don't like Jimmy, why aren't you playing more lead guitar? The guy's phenomenal. It's like, he doesn't play lead guitar, but it's like on that Frantic Demo, you go, listen, I'll have to send you a copy, like a link to some video.
Totally.
And like, dude, those solos are phenomenal, man. And
Jimmy's a talented motherfucker.
It's like Jimmy, you should be playing more lead guitar than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's a good guy. All right, man. I'm gonna let you go on that. Yeah. It's been about 2.5 hours. I got to get some stuff done before I get to work in the morning. But thank you, my friend. I appreciate the conversation, man. It was super fun. Super fun.
We're gonna do it again.
Okay? Oh yeah, definitely. Get into punk rock and Catholicism next time.
Oh, and the next one, then we'll do my childhood in Catholicism, growing up through the Pentecostal movement. Because that's the story that you told.
Same here. I grew up in the evangelical movement. Yeah,
it all builds to understand where Martyr came from. So,
and that story of mine will basically show you how that experience brought me to where I am. You know what I mean? So,
have you told that story yet online?
A little bit here and there. You know what I mean? Like basically, grew up, evangelical. the casting out of demons, the speaking in tongues, and all that other crazy bullshit. You know what I mean?
Okay, so what will happen then? Definitely in our next meeting, we need to coincide those discussions because it sounds very similar.
Very. I think a lot of people our age, especially listening to Christian metal, and I think we come from pretty much a very, very similar cut cloth. There will be definitely differences in cultures and church belief and whatnot, but I think a lot of us our age, and especially in the Christian metal back in the day, we all come from pretty much the same fucking place.
Yep. Yep. Simon, you got an important show, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
you for having me, and I look forward to coming back. So.
Definitely, man.
I'm gonna send you the Screw Tape letters.
Yes,
okay?
please. And look up Life of Agony. Look up that band.
Yeah, I wrote all these down.
Okay.
And what is it? Life of Agony. And where's the other one? Oh, and Ringworm. Oh my God, I had that as a kid, man. Holy cow! I
got it in 7th grade wrestling.
Yeah, it's a fungus.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
fucking parasite. You're like, ah.
Yeah, no, it's a fungus.
Is it? I thought it was either way. I remember.
Yeah,
cream on it and. Ugh.
Oh, you had scabies.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. I don't fucking know. I was in 7th grade. It was wrestling. It was the last sport I ever went.
Yeah.
And then I said, "Fuck it, I'm going back to the beach. I'm gonna go skateboard and surf, man. That's what I'm doing."
Oh, dude. See, that's why we got to have another conversation because we got to talk about punk rock skating.
Oh yeah.
And me in England in the late 70s. So yeah. So dude, we got to have another discussion. Okay.
Definitely. Well, especially I'm a huge fan of the English mod, the Jam and all those bands. Ugh. Oh man, if you were out there for that, that would have been cool as shit.
Yeah, because England was my introduction to punk rock.
Oh yeah.
So that's during my Kiss fan era. But anyway, we'll talk about that
definitely, sir,
in the next video. All right, hey, thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I'll reach out to you soon, man.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
Bye.